welcome to class. For today, there are no props required. So whenever you have your space to practice in, let's go ahead and meet in child's pose at the back of your mat. And now when coming into child's pose today, we're going to take a more narrow stance than we typically do. So we're going to bring the legs parallel to one another. And then start by bringing the hips toward your heels. If you need a blanket of any kind to find support, feel free to grab that. And then as you make that connection, hips to heels, finding a little bit of a lift, magnetism between the two inner arches, left to right. And then once you have a nice supportive little space to start from, you're going to slowly start to walk the hands out and away from you. Trying to keep that connection, sit bones toward the heels as best you can. Finding a lot of length through the low back, through the back of the hips. And then really allowing those hips to stay heavy, keeping a connection to your lower body or between your lower body. As you keep reaching those fingertips toward the top of the mat. Continuing to lengthen through the back body, through the side bodies, with every breath. Slowly allowing the forehead to come a little bit closer toward the earth. And once you feel like you've created some nice space within your spine, through the upper body, go ahead and shift your focus toward the breath as you feel the inhale kind of enforce that connection between belly to thighs. And how it continues to create space along the back body. Go ahead and take 3 more breaths here in this space. And then nice and slow, start to come out or away from the heels. So you can go ahead and tuck those toes. And then go ahead, press through the toes, lift those hips, come into a downward facing dog. Straighten out through the legs as you bring the hips up high toward the sky. Being strong through the upper body as you press through the heel of the hands. And as you slowly lift into your downward facing dog, try to find stillness. Try to find your center right away. And then once you find your center, then slowly start to kind of rock the hips side to side. Try something a little bit new. Maybe you go right toward, the pedaling of the feet, the bend and straightening of the legs. But try working through the hips to start here. And not only are you working through the hips just a little bit, you're working through those side bodies, opening through the rib cage. And just coming into tune with that connection of the hips to the spine. And how you can feel a little bit of both as you kind of wave and rock side to side. Feel free to shift that weight in and out of the hands. Again, explore what feels good. Take advantage of these moments of freedom. And then slowly start to settle back in toward your downward facing dog. Hips lift up high towards the sky, finding a nice hinge between the belly and the front of the thighs. As you're strong through the hands. Inhale, heels lift up high, come on high onto the toes. Exhale, bend the knees, sit those hips back like you're coming into that child's pose. Gaze forward. And then use this to ripple that energy toward the top of the mat. Waving through the spine in what capacity feels good. As you unravel into that high plank, pause here before bending those knees, finding downward facing dog once more. 2 more rounds. Inhale, heels lift up high toward the sky. Exhale, bend those knees. Quick gaze forward before you ripple that energy toward the top of the mat. Move through the spine. Pause in that high plank just for a moment before sending that energy up and back through the hips toward the sky. 1 more round. Inhale, lift. Exhale, bend the knees, gaze forward. Round and ripple. 2. That high plank. Pause. Bend the knees, hips lift, downward facing dog. Take a breath or so here. And then keeping those toes tucked, go ahead and roll over the toes, drop the knees. Keeping those toes tucked, send those hips back toward the heels. Using the heel of the hand to gently guide those hip bones back toward the heels. Just working our way through the soles of the feet a little bit here in this space. Still trying to maintain a good length, a nice opening through the back body. And then slowly start to walk the hands over toward the right side of the room. Keeping those hips down, feel that opening through the left armpit, left rib cage. Keeping that left hip crease pulling back in space. Walk back through center, coming over toward the left side of the room. Right hand stacks on top, and then go ahead and bump that right hip crease back in space. Feel that opening through the right side. Nice and slow, come back through center. Exhale, settle back in. Use the palms of the hands to gently guide yourself back. Feel the length. Feel the connection within your body. And then go ahead and pull yourself up into a tabletop position. And feel free to, we're not going to be on the hands a terrible amount of time today, but if doing a little warm-up of the wrist feels nice, go ahead and explore that. If you'd like to continue to explore movement through the spine, feel free to move into that space. But just take a few moments, take a few breaths. Maybe we do a little bit of both. Maybe you spin the fingertips back toward the knees and explore some mobility within your spine using this particular positioning of the hands. Just taking the opportunity to move your body with your breath to explore what you might need a little extra of as we move through our next few postures. What feels like it requires a little bit extra attention, more time. Slowly making our way back to that tabletop position. If you move the flip of your grip, go ahead and bring those fingertips back toward the front of the mat. And then you're going to bring that left knee toward the center of the mat. Untuck those toes so the top of the foot is down. And as you come into this space, you're going to drive that right knee forward and toward your chest to allow the right ankle to cross in front of that left knee. Coming into Gomukhasana leg. So right foot's coming out toward the left side, left foot's coming out toward the right side. And then you're slowly going to guide those hips down toward the mat. Feeling that tension, that space being created within the outside of the hips. And then you're just going to move in and out of this space to start. So exploring our capacity here. And at whatever point we feel like we've hit our peak, a space that feels good, feel free to linger there. But we're finding some nice slow movements to start moving at your own pace. And then within the next round or so, you can either bring those hips back and down toward the earth and keep the hands down onto the mat. If that feels good, stay there. If you want to come all the way down onto your sit bones, you can move into that space. And finding a nice tall spine. Adjusting your feet and your seat as you need. Nice and tall and lifted. And then you can always stay right here, or we can inhale those arms up and overhead. Exhale, find a nice twist. Right hand comes behind the right hip. Left hand in front of that right knee. And finding a nice little twist here. Nice tall spine. Inhale, arms up back through center. On the exhale, roll over top those legs, come back into that tabletop position. Go ahead and bring that left leg back towards center. Drive that right knee in toward the chest to bring it over and meeting the left. And switching sides. Bringing the right shin in towards the center of the mat, untucking those toes. Driving that left knee in toward the chest so that you can cross the left foot in front of that right knee. Kick those legs out toward their opposite sides and slowly start to move in and out of this space. Making adjustments as you need, trying to send those hips back in space, feeling the tension, the opening within the outer hip. And just making some nice movements forward and back, working our way into this space, but lingering where you'd like to. Taking a few extra moments where it feels good. Knowing that we will move into a few moments of stillness and just a few more breaths. So on your next round, you can stay lifted with the hands down onto the mat for support, or you can come all the way down onto your sit bones. Adjust your legs to create some room for yourself, and then find a nice tall seat before moving anywhere else. Find a connection in the space you are currently arriving into. And then on your next inhale, you feel free to lift those arms up and overhead. And then on the exhale, finding a twist. Left hand comes behind the left hip. Right arm comes outside that left thigh. Keeping that tall spine. Finding a nice little twist through the belly. Staying grounded within your seat. Inhale through center. Arms up overhead, and then exhale, shift your weight over top those legs. Hands come back down to the earth. Bring that right shin towards center. Drive the left knee in toward the chest. Left leg meets the right. And then come back. Child's pose. Untuck the toes, or tuck the toes if you like that sensation within the sole of the feet. And then coming back into that connection, hips to heels. Length within the spine, feeling how that changes or progresses every time we come back into this space. One more breath. Come forward onto the hands just enough to tuck those toes, lift up and back, downward facing dog, coming right through center. Allowing yourself to find symmetry right away as you drop the heels toward the sky. Those hips lift up as you hinge in the hips. Strong within the upper body. Engaged all the way from the heel of the hand as you pull that energy up and into the shoulder blades. A subtle shift into that left foot as you free up the right leg, lifting it up toward the sky, three-legged dog. Bend that knee, open the hip up toward the right side of the room. Continuing to drop that left heel toward the floor, staying strong within the upper body, reaching those right toes into the space behind you, the space you can't see. Feel the opening within the front of that hip, the thigh. And then slowly start to square it off. Lift that leg up toward the sky once more, and then soft bend in that left knee as you drive the right knee toward the right elbow. Connect before dropping that right foot outside the right hand. Feel free to come up onto your fingertips as you slowly start to sway the energy forward and back. Find a nice little rhythm of movement, a nice little sway as you allow those hips to fall toward the earth. And as those hips fall heavy, slowly start to bring the knee down onto the floor, onto your mat. Untuck those toes. Drop that left palm toward the floor, then bring the right hand toward the inside of that right knee as you slowly start to open. Maybe find a little twist. Staying lifted through the crown of the head, so the spine staying nice and long here in this space. Close that right knee off. Start to send the hips back in space. Toes lift up toward the sky, and then slowly start to rotate those toes over toward the outer edge of the mat. And keeping that nice opening within the leg, feel free to keep the fingertips inside that right foot, or you can slowly start to walk the hands over towards the right, coming to the outside of that right leg. Feeling a nice opening through the outside and the back of that right leg, creating space, let it feel good. And slowly start to bring the hands back into the center of the mat. Shift your weight back into that right foot. Knee hugs in toward the midline. Left hand plants, inhale. Open that right arm toward the sky. Find a twist. Find a twisted lizard lunge. Grounding down through that back leg. As you reach the right fingertips up toward the sky, pressing through the heel of that left hand. Big sweep of that right arm forward as it comes down back onto the mat. Tuck the back toes, lift the back knee. Find that lunge and pause. Press through the hands, right foot comes back to meet the left, pause in that plank. Then soften the knees, lift those hips up and back toward the sky, downward facing dog. Settle in your symmetry. Just finding a bit of awareness, left to right, feel the difference. Nice and slow, shift that weight into that right foot to free up the left leg as it inhales. Lift up, three-legged dog. Continue to drop that right heel in towards the mat as you bend the knee. Bend the left knee, open that left hip toward the left side of the room. Staying strong through the upper body, staying lifted within the hips. Reaching those left toes back behind you to create space within that left side body, that left hip. And square it all off. Lift that left leg up high. Soft bend in the right knee as you start to drive that left knee toward the left elbow. Make that connection. Drop the left foot outside the left hand. And pop up onto fingertips if that feels good. Sway your body forward and back. Exploring the depth, the space within your low lunge. Still staying lifted within the belly, so you're still supported in this space, even though we're trying to kind of shimmy our way into some depth here. And then slowly shimmying your way all the way down until that right knee drops down toward the floor. Plant that right hand. Left hand comes inside that left knee, and slowly start to draw that left knee open. Untucking those back toes, staying grounded within the back leg. Feeling that right hip drop down toward the earth. Left hand comes back down into the floor. Start to send your weight back or your hips back in space.
Lifting those left toes up toward the sky. As you lift those left toes up, allow them to turn open toward that left side. So the entire left leg is opening with you as those toes open outward. And then feel free to keep those fingertips inside the left leg, or you can walk them toward the outside of that leg, finding a little bit more opening or just a change in sensation here. Keep sending those hips back, left toes lift up toward the sky. Feel the opening within the outer edge of the hip, the back line of the leg. And start to walk the hands back inside that left foot as the left toes come back down toward the earth. Keep that left knee hugging in. Right hand planted, inhale, twisted lizard lunge, left fingertips toward the sky. Grounded through the top of that back foot. Twisted lizard lunge, let those hips sink, still staying still reaching and staying lifted within those left fingertips. Left hand comes back down toward the earth. Tuck the back toes, lift the back leg. Left foot comes back to meet the right. Pause in that plank before bending the knees, sending those hips up and back. Downward facing dog. Pause in your downward facing dog. Inhale, heels lift. Exhale, bend the knees, gaze forward. Round and ripple that energy all the way toward the top of the mat. High plank and pause. Keep rolling over those toes as you come into upward facing dog. Feel free to stay tucked on the toes, or you can untuck. That feels more comfortable. Lifting through the low belly. Really opening through that front body. And then rolling over those toes, downward facing dog. One more round, inhale, lift, heels up toward the sky. Exhale, bend the knees, gaze forward. Round and ripple that energy, create motion within the spine, open it up. Awaken that energy, pausing in that high plank. And again, keeping the toes tucked or untucked, open the front body, upward facing dog. Drop the knees, bring them nice and wide, child's pose. Settle into your space, into your breath. Feel the belly fall between the thighs. Take 2 more slow, deep breaths here. And slowly start to walk the hands back toward the knees, bringing the knees parallel toward one another, staying onto the tops of the feet, come into a nice kneeling position. And we're just going to take a few rounds of circle camel here, but we're just going to sway from one side to the other, finding a nice heart opener, a nice front body opener here before we close out class today. So finding a nice tall spine, a nice supportive kneeling position to start. And then go ahead and bring the right fingertips beyond those right toes. Sweep the left arm across and overhead as you press those hips forward. Once you hit your peak, slowly lower. On that exhale, left fingertips beyond left toes. Right arm sweeps up and overhead. Open that front body, reaching those right fingertips up and back into the space behind you. Exhale, lower. One more round each side. Inhale. Be nice and slow and dramatic about it so that you can feel that opening within the hips, the chest, the spine, the shoulders, all that good stuff. Exhale, lower. Last round. Inhale, sweep that right arm up and overhead. Feel that opening. Exhale, lower. And find your center. Feel free to really hug those legs in close toward one another. And find a nice, tall, kneeling position. Just find a sense of grounding here. You are more than welcome to transition back into child's pose if that felt like a good check-in point for you. And you can always conclude your class here in Shavasana if that is a ritual that rings true to you as well. You always have options, the posture that makes the most sense for you in your body as you conclude your little series of movements. So choose where you need to be. And wherever that is, soften the eyes. Close the gaze completely so that you are able to tune inward. Feel that energy swirling throughout your body. Maybe you were able to move around some tension, hopefully set it free. And just taking these last few moments here on your mat to release whatever energy that is not required of you, that you don't need, moving back into your day, whatever may still be in store for you. So with that, I encourage you to remain wherever you chose to be for at least 5 to 10 more breaths. Really stay settled into your space and give yourself a few extra moments of a little bit of love and attention before jumping off your mat. As always, I appreciate y'all so much for showing up to these classes and flowing with me. I look forward to seeing y'all next class. Again, every classes are posted every Monday or at least once a week here on this platform. So feel free to like and subscribe, leave a comment if you enjoy the flow, and I look forward to practicing with y'all again next time. Have an awesome rest of your day.